All right. This has been a great one. I was going to just burn through the ending because I've been going really quickly now. And so I have two more chapters, I think. And then the epigraph or the epilogue. And I was going to just burn through, but there's just been so much. And I just got through, what was it, chapter 22, I think. And there's just so much to say. Now, I will say this. And I've said this before, when the Malazans showed up at the island in the continent, I thought, dang it, they're just going to take over things. It's just going to take over the rest of the book, and it's going to distract us from this other stuff with the Lethery E-Doer versus the All. Well, really, the Lethery versus the E-Doer, the Lethery versus the All. With the Patriotists versus Tehol, the stuff with Red Mask and all this going on. And they kind of do. They kind of do take over. But, man, I've totally changed my mind about things once they have arrived. They took over in all the right ways. I am emotionally kind of reeling right now after that chapter. It was so good. So good. And I'm so grateful to you guys for not this time maybe being like, oh, wait till you get to chapter 22. You're going to let, the things that people do, which, it doesn't matter that much. But I'm glad that I went into it thinking it was just going to be another chapter. And it was so good. And we will talk about a couple standout characters that, man, there's one character. Let's just talk about him now. This beak character. Man, is he ever relatable in some ways. He, and I won't talk about his, I don't want to, here, let me just go into it this way. Going on the same thought as I was. When the Malazans showed up and started doing all the stuff that they were doing, but really kind of targeting the E-Doer in the same way that the Lethery were targeting the E-Doer, or in some ways. I was a little bit bugged. And I thought that maybe we were going to just get another massive military something. And it is in some ways. And it has to be because we need those stakes. But the way that it played out is my favorite of all the endings of all of these books so far. Okay? And in that way, I feel like it's finally this great, it feels like up to this point, it's been quite separated, all of these different books. Gardens of the Moon is very much like Memories of Ice, and then we have the other Seven Cities stuff going on. We have this stuff. This is the one where it finally feels like a contained convergence of everything. And I've heard that people feel that way about the Bone Hunters, and that's great. I didn't get that as much because I didn't get I didn't get as much as I wanted from the E-Doer in the Bone Hunters, even though they did come and kick butt and and do all that stuff. I feel like this is the one which is going to feel like this beautiful wrap up, and I'm not even done yet, but also like a new beginning. It's so good. So we get this extra fight, and there's so much. And if you've been following anything, I am sometimes kind of critical about big battles at the end because it sometimes loses my attention a little bit. And that was starting to happen where there was just all this preparation. It would go to this squad and there would be all this preparation. Then it would go to this squad and all this preparation. And then this one. And I thought, okay, let's get on with it. And then we get this moment where all of this sorcery starts to build. And they go, oh, shoot, this is the same stuff that we saw Fiddler is seeing that. Like, this is going to destroy everybody. This is going to destroy us. This is going to destroy everyone who's around here, the E-Doer, just everyone. It starts to build up. And I thought, oh, crap, here we go. Here is something. And you figured Beak was going to do something awesome. But I did not expect this. I did not expect to have another moment that felt so much like Deadhouse Gates in some way, where he is almost like this, the same feeling I got for Coltane and for Squint, I get that with Beak. And I get that with way less pages about this guy. Really, there probably was less than 10 pages about Beak or something like that. I can't even recall. But it was just done so well and slotted in at just the right moment. Now, I love that he fits so well with the themes that I have loved about this series, but especially about this book, which also makes it one of my favorites. Maybe my very favorite, because I loved Memories of Ice, but I am much higher on the ending of Reaper's Gale than I even was with Memories of Ice. So in that way, this might be my favorite. I see it as one big continuation. I don't really see it as different books, even though I like doing, these rankings are interesting, but this is just a great harvest of all the seeds that have been planted up to this point. Okay? And we have this moment as he's wanting to do something, and we find out some of his motivations. That he wanted to be there to be able to protect his brother and save his brother. And we go back to this moment where his brother is hanging himself, and he is this little brother trying to help him, going, not really understanding what is happening, trying to help his brother who is playing with the rope and must have slipped and needs a little bit of help. And he's holding his brother up, and his brother's kind of kicking him away. His older brother has a terrible, terrible relationship with the mother, but obviously not with his little brother. And that just hit me so hard for Beak. And also for the older brother, because as a younger brother of many siblings, I have nieces and nephews who are, I was an uncle when I was 4 years old. So I also have kind of that other side of it. But I remember having this reoccurring dream when I was young. And we lived out on an acreage, and we had just a swinging rope to swing on, jump off the barn and swing from this rope on a tree. And I would have this recurring dream that I would swing down and run into one of my older siblings, and she would fly into the air, way into the air, and then she would come down, and she would be like this freaky porcelain version of herself. And I always would freak out thinking that was my fault. I kicked her into the sky, and she came down as this freaky porcelain thing. And I would keep having that thing. And when I was reading this thing with Beak, I kept thinking, I kept kind of remembering that really childlike, not understanding what was going on. and just feeling for the guy. And as he grows, it's just a masterclass in character development with this guy, and it happens so quickly. And it's like this pure candle that washes over everybody. It's like this big bubble, this white bubble, a mix of all of these candles. And even the Edur run to be inside of this bubble. And everyone's like white temporarily. And Gessler and Stormy have these, they have their golden hair. And it's just an amazing, amazing moment for the series. And I'm shocked that we didn't have Beak before. I don't know if he was just an addition for this one. But I'm shocked. But it also makes sense, because sometimes we have these people who really aren't the center of attention until they step up into their moment. And he wanted to step up and have this moment to save the people that he loved. It feels very much like an Ecovian moment, but in a different sort of way. Then he gets woken up by Hood, who's waiting for another person, and he only waits for certain people, which is interesting. And we get this thing where later he tells the next person who comes along that people see what they want to see, sort of. It's almost like their afterlife is almost of their own making, what they believe it's going to be. And he goes in and he sees his brother, who's made all these little porcelain, or made all these, I can't remember what they were, little wax figurines, I guess. And they sit and start to play. And that should have been something, and that'll be something that makes a lot of people cry. If I had that ability to cry with books, that would have been the one. But it's really, really fantastic. Really fantastic. Now, there are a lot of other things and a lot of reveals that we've gotten from this. We have this odd scene with Bruth and Trana, now that he has kind of gone on to this other place where Han and Mosag did that. He's kind of like under the water and stuff. Within this current, he finds he finds this person, this multi-limbed, or their limbs have more joints in it. So this is one of these forkless sail, I think, and is like, "Hey, my name's Knuckles. You can come in, but just don't bring up dragons." I thought, what? And it is this Kilmandaros who is in here, and they have this interesting sort of conversation that I almost can't even remember now. But on the Discord, we were talking about how we were talking about the nature of a lot of these Tistandi, who are also these soul taken, and how they are always kind of dealing with that other nature. And Kilmandaros really has no patience for people kind of going crazy under that sort of nature. And I mean, she's kind of crazy too. I would just, I don't really understand her either, but it's been fun. We get to, let me see, I wrote a couple things. Right, she's trying to do either this grain, it's either these grains or these bones, but she's making these patterns. It's like this puzzle, and it reminds me of the stuff that they, these artifacts that they don't know what are done with, which I think are Icariums, and this would kind of do something with time. Bruthen is trying to find the place of the names to get the names of the gods, and I'm pretty sure Bryce is the holder of these names if he's still around, but he was that for a while, so maybe he's looking for Bryce. I don't know. Trying to remember this path. We have we have Rudalal, who is Udanis's son. So he is part human and part from this Menendor, who is a Leosin, I think, who also has this dragon in him, and he's been raised by an Imass in the Refugium, which is like a refuge. And the people that are in this, as far as I can tell, are kind of able to control those other sides of them, or something like that. The Imass aren't really as affected in there. They're kind of their mortal selves, and I love the Imass when they are in that state, their regular state. They really can't hide their emotions and what they're feeling, and I love the Imass. And these are ones here who were followers of, or were swayed by Kalava away from the ritual. And I think this was something that a place that the Jagged created, right? I might be getting some of that wrong, but I love the Refugium. If my understanding is correct, I think that's very interesting, and it would be telling why the Udanis's son, Rudalal, would be kept here on purpose, and also why, it seems like a good place to be, kind of. Cotillion wants, it seems like Cotillion wanted people brought here, whether it's Quickbend specifically or what. But it's very, very interesting in that case. They're all kind of concerned or freaked out by this Rudalal, and I just can't wait to see what happens with them. Let's see. This thing with talk. Now that really also, that was the thing that killed me so far in this ending. I loved Beak. That was an amazing part, but we finally get Talk and Tool. But first we get Talk, who is going to protect these children, and is seen shooting these arrows. He isn't missing. His heart is cut in half. Remember, we had hearts being taken in the prologue. His heart is cut in half. His face is removed. And I think that is very fitting, even though that's what they're doing to these other people. But I think it's very fitting that Talk would have that happen. First split in half, because we have these dual natures. But his face, he has the face of this other person. And it's like finally we can see what he did. I know it's not exactly that. This is something awful that happened, but it would make sense that it would happen with Talk. And then Tool shows up. And it's just too late. It's too late for him to help out his friend. And he is the leader of the white-faced Barghast. When I heard that, I just almost leapt out of my seat. Because remember when Trots went to kind of claim his, stake his claim or whatever in Memories of Ice. And he chose to fight as a bridge burner in that style, as a Malazan. That was his chosen identity. Even though he was of this, he chose to be of this. And I think it's amazing because now, after that, the Barghast were something before Trots and before all of that, and now they have chosen Tool. They have chosen him, just like Heaton has chosen him. And I think that is very, very telling. And I think that's just one of the greatest types of endings for any of this. For this whole series, that's the thing that got me the most. That's the ending that I love the most. And we're not even really at this conclusion with Icarium and Karsa and Rulad and all that yet. But I love that. I love that. Kilava, who I don't know if she's going to meet up with Onrak yet. Who knows? I have no idea. But I've loved this ending. Wrote a couple more notes. Oh yeah, the Atraprida, who protected Brawl from these assassins that were sent to get him. She set up somebody to watch his back. And I love that we get that from the Atraprida, that, you know, there's this connection between these two as well. Even though this war is about all these different factions, really it's about these heads and the ones who are doing the grunt work. Really, you know, you would have never thought you would have this mix after reading Midnight Tides. I mean, you have this mix, but I mean a mix in this kind of brotherhood, it seems like, between the Atraprida lady and Brawl. And so, and then we also get that within that bubble between Fiddler and them and these Edur who say, you know, we don't want to be a part of this. We will go. And it's just amazing to see some of that happening at the end of this. I just love it. We have a fake Leathery guy who had a Red Mask face, who doesn't look like that is Red Mask, who gets just mauled by the two Kachane Shamal. So I don't know where he is and who this was. But when that was happening, I thought, holy smokes. And I'm still waiting for some conclusions on that. I can't remember where we really ended off. Yeah, and then Talk goes and gets welcomed into Hood's realm. And I've always thought this, whenever we hear Hood and everyone's worried about it, you know, when these two interactions, if this is Hood for real, doesn't seem so bad, unless I'm just crazy. But I loved these two interactions as they are kind of welcomed on to their afterlife or whatever it is. I thought it was so good. But it is a little bit confusing because he still has his scar. He still has one eye, which means even though he's confused that he is there because his father seems to be still alive, we get that confirmed. His father kind of offered him up to Hood or whatever, kind of, you know. I don't know the details around that, but we see some of that kind of stuff in other literature and things. We get like, what was it? Like, isn't it, who's Samuel or something in the Old Testament is like, if you just let me have a son or something, I can't remember if that's him. It's, you know, I will offer him, I'll give him to the temple. And it just sounded like that sort of thing. Maybe Talk the Elder did that about Talk the Younger, and he's had such a crappy experience. But he is still maybe claimed by the wolves, which makes you think, is he supposed to be a tool to kind of infiltrate in the same way that Hanan Mosag made Bruth and Trana kind of infiltrate this other kind of realm in some way? I just can't wait to see where this goes. And I imagine I will be done the book today, and I will have some final thoughts. But as far as a full picture, satisfying conclusion, I have been satisfied with most of the endings. I know the Bone Hunters, I had a couple chapters right before the last two chapters where I was a little bit off. But I did like the very ending of Bone Hunters. I think this is the one really, though, that I am most satisfied with. And I really, really, really loved the start of this book as well. I loved the new characters. This could be, by the end, the one that I think about the most out of the first 7, but we'll see. We'll see where it really ends. But I've loved it. It's definitely a top 2 or 3, if not the very top spot. So I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.